A Tuesday morning in Riverside, Officer Natalie Brooks had seen 1,000 ordinary scenes through her patrol car window, until 14 police dogs formed a perfect circle around a 7-year-old girl. What they protected in that chalk scrawling would shatter everything she thought she knew about loyalty, and prove that some bonds transcend even death itself. Before we start, make sure to hit like, share, and subscribe. Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. The morning was calm. Gray clouds hung low over Riverside, trapping the autumn chill close to the ground. Wet streets reflected brake lights in smeared reds and ambers. Officer Natalie Brooks drove her patrol route with the windows up, radio crackling softly with routine calls. Nothing urgent, nothing that required her full attention. The passenger seat sat empty. It had been empty for 8 months now. 243 days. If she was counting, and she was always counting. A dog collar dangled from the rearview mirror, leather cracked and faded. The tag read Rex, with a phone number no longer in service. Natalie's fingers brushed it occasionally when she turned corners, a habit she couldn't break, didn't want to break. Her patrol partner, Officer Miguel Santos, rode in a separate vehicle today. He'd stopped trying to make her laugh 3 months ago. She appreciated that. Grief didn't need an audience. The radio crackled. Dispatch announced a fender bender on 5th. Santos responded. Natalie kept driving, passing the elementary school where children's voices drifted through chain-link fences. Their laughter felt distant, like sound traveling through water. She turned left, avoiding the dog park. She always avoided the dog park. Her apartment was worse than the patrol car. Clinical, minimal. Rex's food bowls still sat on the kitchen floor, washed but never put away. His bed occupied the corner of her bedroom, the indent of his body still visible in the cushion. She hadn't washed it, couldn't bear to erase the last physical evidence that he'd existed. Cancer had taken him slowly. 3 months of treatments, hope flickering and dying like a candle in wind. The vet had said it was time. Natalie had held Rex's head in her lap, felt his final breath warm against her wrist. And something inside her had stopped working properly. Captain Morrison had suggested another dog last week. She'd walked away mid-sentence. The morning stretched ahead, empty as the passenger seat. Natalie pulled into a gas station, poured coffee that would go cold before she finished it. The taste didn't matter anymore. Nothing tasted right. The world had flattened into shades of gray, sounds muffled, textures dulled. She was functioning. That was all. Her phone buzzed. Morrison's name flashed on the screen. Brooks. Need you at City Animal Control. Complaint came in about a dangerous dog near Lincoln Elementary. You're closest and you're still certified for canine transport. Her stomach tightened. Captain, I'm not asking you to adopt, Natalie. Just transport to the canine unit for evaluation. 20 minutes, that's all. The line went dead. Natalie sat in the parking lot, engine idling. Rain began to fall, light and cold. The collar swayed on the mirror. Reps's dark eyes stared at her from memory, patient and knowing. She drove to Animal Control. The facility smelled like disinfectant and fear. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting everything in harsh white. A control officer met her at the entrance, clipboard in hand, expression tired. Officer Brooks? He's in back, holding Kennel 7. What's the situation? Found him yesterday behind the school. Wouldn't let anyone near some girl drawing on the sidewalk. Parents called it in. Dog growled but didn't attack. Still, we had to trank him. Natalie followed through narrow hallways lined with kennels. Dogs barked, a cacophony of desperation and confusion. She'd learned to tune it out years ago, but today each bark felt like a needle under her skin. Kennel 7 sat in the back corner, separated from the others. Inside was a puppy, Belgian Malinois, maybe 5 months old. Steel gray coat, unusual for the breed. He sat at attention, back straight, eyes forward. Not cowering, not barking, just watching. Ribs were visible beneath his fur, but his posture was perfect, military straight. A scar ran across his left shoulder, clean, surgical, recent. He's just a puppy, Natalie said. Puppy who knew how to hold position for 3 hours. Parents couldn't get their kids near the school entrance. Animal Control. Ole showed up. He didn't run, just sat there, blocking the sidewalk. Natalie crouched near the kennel. The puppy's eyes tracked her movement with precision. not the clumsy attention of a young dog, calculated, measured. "I'm not taking another dog," she said quietly. "Not asking you to. Just need transport to K9 unit evaluation. You've got the certification." The puppy tilted his head. The angle was familiar. The exact angle Rex used when he was trying to understand her. Natalie's breath caught. "That's impossible," she whispered. "You couldn't know that." The puppy extended one paw through the kennel bars, not begging, offering. Like a handshake, like a promise. Their eyes met, something unspoken passed between them. Recognition without reason, connection without logic. The puppy whined once, a specific frequency. The same frequency Rex had used when he wanted her attention. When he knew she was hurting. When he was offering comfort without words. Natalie stood abruptly, her heart hammered against her ribs. "Open it." The control officer hesitated. "Ma'am, he might." "Open the kennel." The lock clicked. The door swung wide. The puppy walked out calmly, directly to the facility's exit door. He sat, waited, looked back at Natalie. "How does he know where the exit is?" the officer asked. Natalie didn't answer. She walked to her patrol car, opened the passenger door. The puppy followed, jumped in and sat in a seat. Rex's seat. He looked forward through the windshield, alert and ready. No commands given, no training visible. "We found him yesterday," the officer called from the doorway. "No tags, no chip we could read, but he knew what a police car was." Natalie noticed the puppy's paws as he settled. The pads were calloused in a specific pattern. She'd seen that pattern before, years ago, on military K9 transfers. Dogs trained on tactical surfaces, rough concrete and metal grating. This puppy was too young for that kind of wear. She closed the door, walked around to the driver's side. The puppy watched her in the rearview mirror. The collar swayed between them. "Just overnight," Natalie said aloud. "Until the K9 unit opens tomorrow." The puppy's tail thumped once against the seat. Natalie started the engine. Rain fell harder now, drumming on the roof. The world outside blurred into streaming gray. But inside the car, something had shifted. The emptiness felt less absolute. Natalie's house sat at the end of a quiet street, small and unremarkable. The kind of place that disappeared into neighborhoods, noticed by no one. She pulled into the driveway as dusk settled, painting everything in shades of purple and gray. The puppy waited for her to open the door. She hadn't expected that. Most dogs would leap out, eager and clumsy. This one sat until released, then followed 3 steps behind her to the front door. The distance was exact, deliberate. Inside, Natalie set her keys on the counter. "Just one night," she repeated. "Then you go to the K9 unit." The puppy walked directly to the corner of the living room, to Rex's bed. Natalie froze. She hadn't shown him where it was, hadn't pointed or gestured. The bed sat partially hidden behind an armchair, out of immediate view from the entrance. The puppy circled 3 times. Rex's exact ritual, the same clockwise rotation, the same careful positioning before lying down. He settled into the indent Rex's body had left behind. Natalie's throat tightened. She turned away, busied herself with meaningless tasks. Checked the locks twice, straightened magazines already straight. Anything to avoid looking at the corner where a strange dog lay in her dead partner's place. But exhaustion pulled her towards sleep eventually. She changed clothes, brushed her teeth, stared at her reflection without really seeing it. When she returned to the living room to check the locks one final time, the puppy was watching her. "You need food," she said. She filled one of Rex's bowls with kibble, from a bag she'd never thrown away. The puppy ate slowly, methodically, not the frantic gulping of a starved animal. Measured bites, careful chewing. Afterward, Natalie ran water in the bathtub. The puppy needed washing. Dirt and grime caked his coat, and she could smell the kennel on him. He followed her to the bathroom without hesitation. The water turned gray almost immediately. Natalie worked shampoo through his fur, feeling his body relax under her hands. He didn't squirm or try to escape. He stood perfectly still, allowing her access to every part of him. That's when she found the other scars. 3 circular marks. It's behind his left ear, small, precise. The pattern was unmistakable to anyone with medical or tactical training. Electrode placement sites. Natalie's hands stilled. "Buddy, where did you come from?" The puppy turned his head, leaning into her palm. Trust radiated from him, immediate and absolute, as if he'd known her for years instead of hours. She dried him carefully, checking for more marks. His body was a map of surgical precision, healed incisions along his shoulders, reinforced calluses on his joints. This wasn't accidental injury or rough living. Someone had altered him deliberately. Sleep didn't come easily that night. Natalie lay in bed, listening to the puppy breathe in the next room. Steady, rhythmic. The sound should have been comforting. Instead, it raised questions that multiplied in the darkness. At 5:47 in the morning, the puppy appeared in her bedroom doorway. Natalie's alarm was set for 6. He walked to the door, sat, and waited. His posture was alert but calm, expectant. At 5:58, her phone rang. Captain Morrison's name lit the screen. "Brooks, need you in early. Accident on the highway. All units responding." She ended the call, looked at the puppy. He'd been waiting at the door 2 minutes before the phone rang. No sound cues, no way to know. "How did you know?" she whispered. The puppy's tail wagged once. Natalie dressed quickly, mind racing through explanations that didn't quite fit. Dogs had good instincts. They sensed patterns. Maybe she always woke around this time. Maybe he'd learned her routine in just one night, except he couldn't have. She grabbed her keys from the counter, or tried to. They'd fallen behind the coffee maker somehow, out of sight. "I need my keys," she muttered, not really talking to anyone. The puppy walked to the counter, rose on his hind legs, nosed the keys to the edge, then pushed them off. He caught them before they hit the ground, carried them to her hand, and dropped them in her palm. Natalie stared. "I didn't teach you that." She hadn't used a command voice, hadn't pointed or gestured, just spoken conversationally, the way people talk to themselves in empty rooms. The puppy sat, watching her with those intelligent eyes. At the station, Santos caught up with her in the parking lot. "You brought a dog?" "Temporary. Transport to canine unit. He's small for a working dog. He's young." Santos leaned closer to the car window. The puppy stared back, unblinking. Santos straightened quickly. "That's an intense little guy." Morrison emerged from the building, coffee in hand. He spotted the puppy, raised an eyebrow. "That the one from animal control?" "Yes, sir. Cute. Getting him evaluated today?" "That's the plan." Morrison nodded and walked away. The puppy watched him go, head tracking the movement with precision. Not playful curiosity. Assessment. Natalie's shift passed in routine calls and paperwork. She left the puppy in the car with water and the windows cracked. When she returned 2 hours later, he was sitting in the exact position she'd left him. At home that evening, she let him into the backyard. The fence was 6 feet high, solid wood. Rex had never been able to jump it. Few dogs could. The puppy cleared it effortlessly. Natalie's heart seized. She ran to the gate, fumbling with the lock. Before she could open it, the puppy landed back in the yard, a tennis ball in his mouth. Santos's tennis ball. From his yard next door. 5-month-old puppies couldn't jump 6 feet. The physics didn't work. Their muscles weren't developed enough. Their coordination too unsteady. This puppy had sailed over, like gravity was a suggestion. "That's not normal," came a voice from the fence line. Mrs. Chen, her neighbor, watched from her garden. Elderly, sharp-eyed, perpetually gardening. "He's young, just energetic," Natalie said. "My husband trained military dogs in Taiwan for 20 years. That movement? That's not pet training. That's combat conditioning." Mrs. Chen disappeared into her house without waiting for a response. Natalie looked at the puppy. He dropped the ball at her feet, sat, and waited. His muscles were too defined for his age. His eyes too focused. His behavior too controlled. She picked up the ball. "What are you?" That night, she made a list. Every impossible thing the puppy had done in 36 hours. Anticipated her alarm. Knew the phone would ring. Retrieved keys without training. Understood conversational speech. Cleared a 6-foot fence. Found an object in an adjacent yard and returned in under a minute. 15 separate incidents that defied normal canine behavior. She opened her laptop, typed Canine R37 into the search bar. Nothing. Tried military dog tracking chip. General results. Nothing specific. Tried enhanced canine training programs. The results were sanitized. Official, generic. She called Tom Wild, the canine unit coordinator. He answered on the 3rd ring. Voice thick with sleep. Wild. "It's Brooks. Question about a dog." "It's almost midnight, Brooks." Belgian Malinois puppy. About 5 months old, Chip code K9R37. Mean anything to you? Silence stretched across the line. Too long, too deliberate. Never heard of it, Wilde said finally. You hesitated. I'm tired. Look, bring him by tomorrow. We'll scan him properly. The call ended. Natalie sat in the darkness, laptop screen glowing. The puppy lay at her feet, head resting on his paws, watching her, always watching. Her phone rang at 11:47. Unknown number, she answered. Brooks. Officer Brooks, you have something of ours. The voice was male, measured, military precise. Her pulse quickened. Who is this? National Canine Development Program. Apollo wasn't supposed to leave the facility. Apollo? The puppy you're currently housing. We'd like him back, for his safety and yours. He's just a dog. What are you talking about? A pause. Check his left rear leg. Inner thigh. There's a small tattoo. Natalie muted the phone, walked to the puppy, whiffed at his leg gently. In the lamplight, she saw it. R37. Black ink. Professionally done. She unmuted. What does it mean? R for Rhea. 37 for project number. Who's Rhea? Apollo's mother. She died saving her handler in Kabul 8 months ago. The line went dead before Natalie could respond. She stood in her living room, phone still pressed to her ear, staring at the puppy. Apollo. His name was Apollo. He watched her calmly, as if waiting for her to catch up to information he already possessed. 8 months ago. The same amount of time since Rex had died. The symmetry felt intentional, though Natalie couldn't explain why. She sat on the floor beside him. Your mother was a hero? Apollo's ears twitched. He moved closer, rested his head on her knee. The weight was slight, but grounding, real. Sleep came in fragments that night. Natalie dreamed of explosions and dogs she'd never met. When her alarm sounded at 6, Apollo was already at the bedroom door. This time she'd expected it. Morning light filtered through curtains, pale and hesitant. Natalie made coffee, watched Apollo eat breakfast with the same careful precision as before. Every action measured, nothing wasted. We need answers, she said. Apollo looked up, kibble forgotten. She called Dr. Sarah Chen, a veterinarian who specialized in working dogs. They'd met years ago through Rex's routine care. Chen had a reputation for discretion and expertise that extended beyond typical practice. I need you to examine a dog. Quietly. How quietly? The kind where you don't file paperwork immediately. Dr. Chen was silent for 3 seconds. Bring him this afternoon. 4 o'clock. Use the side entrance. The hours crawled. Natalie went through her shift on autopilot, mind circling the phone call from last night. National Canine Development Program. She'd never heard of it. Military and federal databases she had access to showed nothing. Whoever they were, they operated outside normal channels. At 3:45, she pulled into the veterinary clinic's rear lot. The building is modern, glass and steel. Too expensive for a standard practice. Dr. Chen accepted clients most vets wouldn't touch. Working dogs with classified histories. Animals whose records couldn't be disclosed. Dr. Chen met them at the side door. She was 40, efficient, with silver streaking her black hair. Her eyes went to Apollo immediately. Captain Morrison said you'd need discretion, Dr. Chen said. Natalie blinked. You talked to Morrison? He called an hour ago. Said to give you whatever you needed. Dr. Chen knelt, examined Apollo without touching him first. Beautiful animal. Unusual coloring for a Malinois. Can you scan his chit? They moved to an exam room, sterile and bright. Apollo jumped onto the table without prompting, sat perfectly still as Dr. Chen ran the scanner over his shoulders. The machine beeped. Text scrolled across the screen. K9 Apollo Gen 237. Dr. Chen read aloud. Gen 2 designation. I've scanned 10,000 dogs in 20 years. Never seen military-grade encryption in a puppy. What does Gen 2 mean? Generation 2. Implies there was a first generation. Dr. Chen's fingers moved across the keyboard. The chip has a secondary frequency. It's a tracker. Active. Natalie's stomach dropped. Someone's tracking him right now? Has been since you took him. Whoever called you last night already knew exactly where he was. The revelation sat heavy in the room. Apollo remained motionless on the table, eyes forward, as if this conversation didn't concern him. Dr. Chen began the physical exam. She worked methodically, checking teeth, eyes, joints, Her expression shifted from professional curiosity to something harder. "His bone density is 40% higher than breed standard," she said quietly. "Canine teeth have reinforced enamel. The angle is sharper than natural development creates." "What does that mean?" "Someone modified him." Dr. Chen pressed her stethoscope to Apollo's chest. "Heart rate is 30% slower than normal. That's an endurance adaptation. Olympic athletes have similar patterns." She drew blood, ran it through a machine that hummed and clicked. Results appeared on a monitor. Dr. Chen studied them in silence. "Muscle fiber composition is wrong," she said, finally. "This is Olympic-level conditioning in a 5-month-old puppy. It's physically impossible without intervention." Natalie felt cold. "What kind of intervention?" "Genetic, most likely. In utero modification." Dr. Chen turned to face her. "Someone designed this dog before he was born." The words hung in the sterile air. Apollo's tail wagged once, oblivious or indifferent to the conversation dissecting his existence. "Is he in pain?" Natalie asked. "No. Physically, he's perfect. Too perfect." Dr. Chen removed her gloves. "Where did you find him?" "Animal control. He was protecting a little girl at an elementary school." "Protecting how?" "Wouldn't let anyone near her. Held position for hours." Dr. Chen nodded slowly. "That's consistent with advanced training. But you can't train a puppy to that level in 5 months. The neural pathways aren't developed enough. Unless someone accelerated the development. Unless that." Dr. Chen printed the results, handed them to Natalie in a sealed envelope. "My official report will say he's a healthy Malinois puppy. My unofficial opinion, this dog is a military experiment, and whoever made him wants him back." Natalie drove home as sunset turned the sky orange and pink. Apollo sat in the passenger seat, watching the world pass, content, untroubled. At home, Natalie spread the medical reports across her kitchen table. The technical language was dense, but the implications were clear. Apollo wasn't just trained, he was built. Her phone buzzed, text from an unknown number. "Officer Brooks, we need to discuss Apollo's future. Tomorrow, 10 a.m., Riverside Park, North Entrance. Come alone." She deleted the message, then immediately regretted it. Apollo appeared at her side, pressed his body against her leg. The contact was warm, solid, reassuring in a way that made her chest ache. "They want you back," she whispered, "but I don't think I can let you go." That evening, she sat on the back porch. Apollo lay beside her, head resting on her foot. Stars emerged one by one, pinpricks in darkening blue. Natalie thought about Rex, his last days, when the cancer had hollowed him out, but his eyes still held that spark of recognition. The way he'd pressed his nose to her palm one final time, as if saying goodbye and thank you simultaneously. She'd thought that connection was gone forever. Apollo shifted, placed his paw on her hand. The gesture was identical to Rex's, same pressure, same placement. Her breath hitched. "How do you know to do that?" Apollo didn't answer. Dogs never did. But his eyes held something that looked like understanding. Inside, Natalie researched until midnight. Searched military forums, whistleblower sites, obscure veterinary journals. Found fragments, references to enhanced canine programs quickly deleted. A blog post about genetic modification in working dogs that led to a dead link. Someone was scrubbing information, actively. At 1 a.m, Apollo growled. Natalie looked up from her laptop. He stood rigid, facing the front door. The growl was low, continuous, not the warning bark of a startled pet, the controlled aggression of a trained guardian. She moved to the window, peered through the curtain. A dark sedan sat across the street, engine off. No one visible inside, but the windows were tinted. They were watching. Natalie killed the lights, grabbed her service weapon from the lockbox. Apollo remained at the door, body tense. "It's okay," she whispered. "We're safe inside." But she didn't believe it, and from the way Apollo's muscles stayed coiled, neither did he. The sedan remained for 2 hours. Then, at 3:15, it drove away, slowly, making sure she knew it had been there. Natalie didn't sleep. She sat in the darkness, with Apollo pressed against her side, feeling his heartbeat through his ribs. Steady, strong, unnaturally slow. By sunrise, she'd made a decision. She wasn't going to the meeting. wasn't going to hand Apollo over to people who turned him into an experiment. Whatever he was, whatever they'd done to him, he was still just a dog who deserved better than being treated like equipment. Apollo looked up at her as morning light spilled through the windows. His eyes were clear, trusting. "You're staying with me," Natalie said. "I don't care what they want." His tail wagged twice. Outside, the street was empty, normal, as if the sedan had never existed. But Natalie knew better. They'd be back. People who could genetically modify dogs and scrub information from the internet didn't give up easily. She looked at the medical reports still spread across the table, at the tattoo on Apollo's leg, at the scar on his shoulder. He was evidence, proof of something someone wanted hidden. And she'd just made herself an obstacle. Natalie didn't go to the meeting. At 10 o'clock, she was at the station instead, sitting across from Captain Morrison in his office. Apollo lay at her feet, calm despite the unfamiliar environment. Morrison studied the dog, then the medical reports Natalie had placed on his desk. "This is substantial," he said quietly. "Someone modified him before birth, made him stronger, faster, smarter, then tried to reclaim him through intimidation. You're sure about the surveillance? Dark sedan, 3 hours outside my house, left at 03:15. Morrison rubbed his jaw. "And you didn't go to their meeting?" "No, sir. They won't like that." He looked at Apollo again. "Military experiments don't just disappear, Brooks. If this dog is what you say, they'll escalate." "I know. You prepared for that?" Natalie met his eyes. "I'm not giving him back." Morrison was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded. "All right. Keep him close. Document everything. If they make contact again, record it." "Thank you, Captain." "Don't thank me yet. You just made yourself a target." Natalie left the station feeling simultaneously relieved and exposed. Apollo trotted beside her, matching her pace exactly. 3 steps behind, military standard. Her phone rang as she reached the parking lot. "Unknown number," she answered. "Brooks, you missed our meeting." The same male voice from before, calm, controlled. "I don't negotiate with people who experiment on animals." "Apollo isn't an experiment, Officer Brooks. He's a legacy." "What does that mean?" "It means his mother Rhea was one of the most decorated canines in military history. 47 confirmed explosive detections. 3 combat deployments. She died saving her handler 8 months ago in Kabul." Natalie's grip tightened on the phone. "So you decided to clone her?" "Not clone. Continue. Rhea was pregnant when she died. Emergency C-section saved 1 puppy, Apollo." The parking lot felt too bright suddenly, too exposed. "We didn't create him." The voice continued. "We preserved him, enhanced him so he could carry on what his mother started. By modifying his genetics without consent." "Dogs don't give consent, Officer Brooks." "That's exactly the problem." Silence stretched across the line. When the voice returned, it was colder. "Apollo is government property. His genetic material is classified. Keeping him is theft of federal assets. He's a living being. He's both. And we're running out of patience." The call ended. Natalie stood in the parking lot, heart hammering. Apollo sat at her feet, looking up with those unnaturally intelligent eyes. "Your mother was a hero," she said softly. "But they want to make you a weapon." Apollo's ear twitched. He stood, body suddenly tense, facing the parking lot entrance. 3 black SUVs pulled in. No lights, no sirens. They parked in a semicircle, blocking her car. Men in tactical gear emerged. 6 of them. No visible weapons. But their postures screamed military training. The lead man approached. 50, graying, eyes hard. "Officer Brooks, I'm Agent Garrett, Department of Homeland Security. We're here to retrieve classified military property." Natalie positioned herself between Garrett and Apollo. "Show me a warrant. This is a matter of national security." "Then you'll have no problem getting a warrant." Garrett's jaw tightened. "The dog is dangerous. He's been genetically modified in ways you don't understand. He's been perfectly calm because he's obeying protocols, but those protocols can fail. When they do, he becomes a liability." Morrison emerged from the station, 4 patrol officers behind him. He walked directly to Garrett, positioned himself beside Natalie. "Agent Garrett, you're on my station's property without notification. Captain Morrison, this doesn't concern local law enforcement. A federal operation on my jurisdiction concerns me. Morrison crossed his arms. You want that dog, show me paperwork. Otherwise, leave. Garrett's expression didn't change, but his posture shifted. Reassessing. We have authorization. Then it won't be hard to produce documentation. The standoff lasted 30 seconds. Then Garrett stepped back. We'll return with appropriate paperwork. Keep the dog secured, Officer Brooks. If he harms anyone, you're liable. The SUVs left as smoothly as they'd arrived. Morrison exhaled slowly. That bought you time. Not much. How much? A day, maybe 2. They'll fabricate whatever they need. Natalie looked down at Apollo. He'd remained perfectly still through the entire confrontation. Not aggressive, not afraid, just alert. That evening, Natalie sat in her living room with her laptop, digging deeper. She bypassed normal search engines, used databases Rex's former handler had shown her years ago, backdoors into military archives. She found fragments, a project called Genesis, references to inherited memory protocols and accelerated neural mapping. Most files were redacted, but one document remained partially intact, a casualty report from Kabul, 8 months ago. Lieutenant Marcus Webb, canine handler, listed as killed in action alongside his dog, Rhea. Except there was a notation in the margin, added later. Handler status, under review. Under review, not confirmed dead. Natalie's pulse quickened. She searched Marcus Webb's name, found a service photo. 37 years old, sharp features, exhausted eyes. 3 tours, decorated twice. And then, nothing. No death certificate, no burial record, no memorial service. Marcus Webb had disappeared. Her phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. Officer Brooks, this is Marcus Webb. We need to talk about Apollo. Tonight. Natalie stared at the message. Dead men didn't send texts. She typed back. Prove your Webb. The response came with an attached photo. Marcus Webb, a larve, holding today's newspaper. Behind him, a nondescript motel room. Bayside Motel, room 12. Come alone. Bring Apollo. I won't hurt either of you. I saved him once. I'm trying to save him again. Natalie looked at Apollo. He was watching her, head tilted. Your handler might be alive. She whispered. Apollo's ears perked. He stood, walked to the door, and waited. The Bayside Motel was a decaying structure on the edge of town. Cracked parking lot, flickering neon sign. The kind of place people went to disappear. Natalie parked in the shadows, hand on her service weapon. Apollo sat rigid in the passenger seat, staring at room 12. The door opened before she knocked. Marcus Webb looked like his photo, but hollowed out, thinner, harder, with scars that hadn't been in the military records. He stared at Apollo, and something broke in his expression. He has her eyes, Webb said quietly. Apollo didn't move, just stared back. You're supposed to be dead, Natalie said. I was, almost. Webb stepped aside. Come in, please. The room was sparse. Bed, table, single chair. Papers covered every surface. Photos, documents, maps. Webb closed the door. They told you I died in Kabul. The report said killed in action. The report lied. Webb sat heavily on the bed. Rhea pushed me out of the blast radius, took the explosion herself. I survived. She didn't. His voice cracked on the last word. She was pregnant. The medics did an emergency C-section, saved one puppy. Webb looked at Apollo. Him. So you're alive and they have your dog. Why run? Because I saw what they were doing to him. Webb's hands clenched. They called it the Genesis program. Genetic enhancement. Neural acceleration. They wanted to compress 2 years of training into 6 months. How? Gene therapy. In utero modification. They altered Apollo before he was born, Brooks. Made him stronger, faster, smarter. But that wasn't enough. They wanted to condition him too. Webb pulled out a folder, handed it to Natalie. Inside were photos. Apollo. Olo, younger, hooked to machines. Electrodes on his head, eyes wide with fear. Natalie's stomach turned. They tortured him. They called it accelerated learning, pain conditioning, fear suppression, loyalty override. Webb's voice shook. I couldn't watch it anymore, so I took him. You stole him. I saved him. Webb stood, moved to the window, peered through the gap in the curtains. His movements were careful, practiced. A man who'd learned to expect danger. "I was transporting Apollo 3 days ago," he said. "Planned to disappear completely. Canada, maybe. Some way they couldn't find us." "What happened?" "He escaped the vehicle. I was stopped at a gas station, and he just bolted. I've been searching for him ever since." Webb turned to face her. "When I heard animal control picked him up near an elementary school, I knew. He wasn't running away. He was going somewhere specific." Natalie looked at Apollo. The dog sat perfectly still, eyes fixed on Webb, recognition without reaction. "Why is school?" she asked. "I don't know, but Apollo doesn't do anything randomly. They programmed that out of him." The words landed heavy. Programmed, like software, like a machine. "He's still a dog," Natalie said quietly. "Is he?" Webb's expression was pained. "I don't know anymore. I look at him and I see Rhea. Her intelligence, her instincts, her loyalty. But I also see what they did. The enhancements, the conditioning. Where does the dog end and the experiment begin?" Apollo's ear twitched. He stood abruptly, walked to the door. Webb tensed. "What is it?" "I don't know." Apollo growled, low, sustained. The same sound from the night the sedan had watched her house. Webb moved fast, grabbing a small backpack from under the bed. "They found us. We need to leave, now." "How do you know?" "Because he knows." Natalie drew her weapon, cracked the door open. The parking lot appeared empty, quiet. But Apollo's body remained rigid, every muscle coiled. Then she heard it. The distant thrum of helicopter rotors. "Out the back," Webb said. "There's a drainage ditch behind the motel. Leads to the service road." They moved quickly, Apollo leading despite never having been here before. He navigated the motel's rear exit, found the ditch exactly where Webb said it would be, and waited for them to follow. A helicopter sound grew louder. They ran through the ditch, cold water soaking through their shoes. Apollo moved with perfect efficiency, never splashing, never slowing. Behind them, searchlights began sweeping the motel. They reached the service road. Webb's truck sat hidden under a copse of trees, covered with a camouflage tarp. "Get in," Webb said. Natalie hesitated. "I can't just run. I'm a police officer. You became a fugitive the moment you refused to give him back." Webb started the engine. "You coming or not?" Apollo jumped into the truck bed without prompting. Natalie climbed in. They drove without headlights, using back roads and service paths. The helicopter swept overhead twice, searchlights cutting through the darkness. Each time, Webb pulled under tree cover and waited. "Where are we going?" Natalie asked. "Somewhere they won't look. Somewhere public enough that they can't act overtly." "Where?" "Lincoln Elementary, where they found Apollo 3 days ago." Natalie's stomach dropped. "That's where this started. That's where it needs to end. Apollo went there for a reason. I think he's trying to tell us something." They parked 2 blocks from the school, approached on foot. Midnight had passed. The streets were empty, silent except for distant traffic sounds. The school's front courtyard appeared deserted. Streetlights cast long shadows across the pavement. Apollo walked directly to the center of the courtyard, to an enormous chalk drawing. Natalie hadn't noticed it before, too focused on removing Apollo from animal control. But now, under the artificial light, it was impossible to miss. 20 feet across. Intricate. Detailed beyond anything a child should be capable of creating. The drawing depicted soldiers and dogs, explosions rendered in orange and red chalk, an American flag, and at the center, a dog standing over a fallen soldier. "Oh God," Webb whispered. Natalie looked closer. The soldier's face was sketched with remarkable precision. Marcus Webb's face. The dog above him had steel-gray fur. "Rhea." "How is this possible?" Natalie asked. "I don't know. This is exactly how it happened. Exactly." Webb knelt beside the drawing. "The explosion was behind me. Rhea pushed me forward, stood between me and the blast. This is the last thing I saw before the shrapnel hit." "Who drew this?" A sound behind them. Small footsteps on pavement. They turned. A little girl stood at the edge of the courtyard. 7 years old, dark hair, wearing pajamas and a coat thrown hastily over them. She held a box of chalk in one hand. Apollo walked to her, sat, looked up at her face. The girl reached out, placed her hand on Apollo's head. No fear, just recognition. "Emma." A woman ran into the courtyard, frantic. 32. Exhausted, still wearing hospital scrubs. "Emma, you can't keep running away like this." The woman stopped when she saw Natalie and Webb. Her expression shifted from panic to confusion. "Who are you?" Natalie raised her hands, showing she meant no harm. Officer Natalie Brooks, Riverside PD. This is Marcus Webb. Why are you with my daughter in the middle of the night? We're trying to understand something. Natalie gestured to the drawing. Did Emma create this? The woman, Emma's mother, looked at the chalk art. Her face softened with sad recognition. She draws every night. Started 2 years ago, after her father died. Her father? Police officer, killed in the line of duty. Rachel Carter moved to Emma, placed a protective hand on her shoulder. Emma hasn't spoken since. Just draws. Webb stared at the little girl. Emma, how did you know what Rhea looked like? Emma didn't answer, didn't look at him, just kept her hand on Apollo's head. She doesn't speak, Rachel said quietly. Apollo pressed against Emma's leg. The girl knelt, wrapped her arms around him. Silent tears ran down her face. Rachel's expression crumbled. She does this every night, sneaks out, comes here, draws pictures of dogs and soldiers. The school's called 3 times. I work double shifts at the hospital. I can't watch her every second. Miss Carter, Natalie said gently, has Emma ever seen photos of military operations, Kabul, combat dogs? No, nothing like that. I kept everything about violence away from her after Tom died. Webb approached slowly, knelt a few feet from Emma. Emma, can you hear me? The girl didn't respond, but her eyes shifted to him. Recognition flickered there. You drew my dog, Webb said softly. Rhea, Apollo's mother, she saved my life. Emma released Apollo, picked up white chalk, began drawing beside the first image. Her hand moved with purpose, creating new shapes. She drew a smaller dog, a puppy. Beside it, she drew a woman in a police uniform. Natalie felt her breath catch. That's me. Emma drew more, the puppy and the woman, together, protected, safe. Then she drew a heart around them. Apollo walked to the drawing, placed his paw directly on the heart, looked at Emma. The girl smiled. First genuine expression of emotion. Rachel covered her mouth, tears spilling. She hasn't smiled in 2 years. Emma stood, moved to Webb. She reached into her coat pocket, pulled out something small, extended it to him. A dog tag, military issue. The name read, Rhea. Webb's hand shook as he took it. Where did you get this? Emma pointed to the ground, to the exact spot where Apollo had been found 3 days ago. He brought this? Webb's voice cracked. Apollo brought you Rhea's tag? Emma nodded. Suddenly, the sound of engines, multiple vehicles approaching fast. Apollo's body went rigid. He positioned himself between Emma and the street. 3 SUVs pulled up, doors opened. Agent Garrett emerged, flanked by tactical personnel. But behind them, Captain Morrison's patrol units arrived. 6 cars, lights flashing. Morrison stepped out, walked directly to Garrett. We have a situation. Captain, this is federal business. This is a 7-year-old child in my jurisdiction. Make it everyone's business. More vehicles arrived. News vans. Someone had tipped off the media. Cameras emerged. Reporters moved forward. Garrett's expression darkened. How did they know? Morrison smiled slightly. Small towns talk, especially when helicopters start circling. A reporter called out. Agent Garrett, is it true the federal government is trying to confiscate a dead soldier's dog? Another. Why are armed tactical units surrounding a child? Garrett turned to his team. Stand down. Sir, stand down. We can't operate with media present. The tactical personnel retreated to the vehicles. Webb stood, placed himself beside Apollo and Emma. Natalie moved to his other side. Morrison addressed the crowd. We're investigating reports of harassment and unlawful surveillance. Everyone stays calm. More people arrived. Neighbors, drawn by the lights and noise. They formed a loose circle around the courtyard, phones raised, recording everything. Apollo remained perfectly still, protecting Emma, exactly as his mother had protected Webb. The standoff held for 30 seconds that felt like minutes. Then something impossible happened. Sirens approached from multiple directions, not patrol cars, K9 units. 14 vehicles arrived simultaneously, forming a perimeter around the courtyard. Handlers emerged, dogs at their sides. German shepherds, Belgian Malinois, bloodhounds, Dutch shepherds. Every police dog within 30 miles. Sergeant Tom Wilde stepped forward, a grizzled handler with 25 years' experience. He looked at Apollo, then at the chalk drawing. Release your dogs, he said to the handlers. Sir, one of them questioned. You heard me. Release them. 14 handlers unclipped their leads. The dogs moved as one, walked calmly into the courtyard, formed a perfect circle around Emma's chalk drawing. Each dog sat simultaneously, facing inward. No commands given, no training that could explain it. The crowd fell silent. Cameras captured everything. Agent Garrett stared. That's not possible. I've been training canines for 25 years, Wild said quietly. I've never seen this. Dogs don't spontaneously form ceremonial formations. Another handler, Officer Dawson, approached the circle slowly. They're not agitated, not confused. They know what they're doing. Morrison turned to Garrett. You want to explain what's happening here? Garrett's jaw worked. He looked at Webb. You told them. I told them nothing, Webb said. The dogs did this on their own. Emma walked into the center of the circle. The dogs remained perfectly still, creating a protective barrier around her. Apollo joined her, sat at her side. Rachel moved to follow, but Natalie caught her arm gently. Wait, let's see what happens. Emma knelt beside the chalk drawing of Rhea and Webb. She picked up yellow chalk, began adding something new, light. Rays of light emanating from Rhea, reaching toward the puppy in the adjacent drawing. Connection, legacy, love passing from mother to son. Webb's composure broke. Tears ran down his face. She understands. Somehow she understands what Rhea meant. A reporter pushed forward. Agent Garrett, these dogs are honoring something. What are they honoring? Garrett remained silent. The federal liaison officer, younger than Garrett, stepped forward instead. We should explain. Davis, stand down, Garrett ordered. Sir, with respect, this is already public. Davis turned to Morrison. The dog, Apollo, is the son of a military canine named Rhea. She was killed in action 8 months ago in Kabul, saving her handler. Apollo was born via emergency C-section minutes before Rhea died. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Davis continued. Apollo was enrolled in an experimental program called Genesis. The goal was to enhance natural canine abilities through genetic modification. The program used methods that were, he hesitated, ethically questionable. They tortured him, Webb said loudly. They hooked a puppy to machines and conditioned him through pain. Cameras swung to Webb. Reporters pressed forward. Davis didn't deny it. The program has been under investigation. 3 other dogs suffered severe psychological trauma. Apollo was the only success, which made him valuable. When Lieutenant Webb removed him from the facility, we were ordered to recover him. He's property to you, Natalie said. But he's a living being who's been through hell. The 14 dogs remained in formation, unmoving. Emma continued drawing, adding more details. She drew other dogs now, surrounding the central image. Protecting, honoring. Wild watched, shaking his head slowly. I don't understand how they're doing this. There's no signal, no command. They're acting on something we can't detect. Trauma, Rachel said quietly. Everyone turned to her. Emma processes trauma through art. She witnessed her father's death, hasn't spoken since. But she draws what she feels, what she senses in others. She looked at Apollo. Maybe she recognized Apollo's pain. Maybe he recognized hers. Dogs don't communicate complex emotional concepts. Garrett said, Then how do you explain this? Morrison gestured to the circle of dogs. 14 animals from different units, different trainers, different breeds, all doing the same thing without command. A canine handler from a neighboring precinct spoke up. My dog, Sergeant, has never met Apollo, but the moment we arrived, he pulled toward this spot, wouldn't stop until I released. Released him? Another handler nodded. Same with my dog, like she was being called. Webb moved closer to the circle. Rhea had a presence. Other dogs responded to her, respected her without training or hierarchy. It was something innate. And Apollo inherited it, Natalie said. More than inherited. Dr. Chen's voice cut through the crowd. She pushed forward, medical bag in hand. I ran Apollo's genetic markers. His neural pathway patterns match Rhea's exactly, not similar, identical. That's impossible, Davis said. Neural patterns develop individually. Unless they're imprinted during gestation. Unless a mother's dying brain patterns transfer to a developing fetus in trauma conditions. Dr. Chen looked at Apollo. Rhea died conscious. She lived 4 minutes after the C-section, looking at her puppy. Her final neural activity synchronized with his developing brain. The courtyard fell silent. You're saying Apollo has his mother's memories? Morrison asked. I'm saying he has her instincts at a level we don't understand. Muscle memory isn't just physical, it's neurological. Apollo knows what Rhea knew because her mind shaped his during the most critical development window. Webb knelt at the edge of the circle. Rhea, if you can hear me through him, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I couldn't save you. Apollo turned, looked directly at Webb, walked out of the circle, approached him, placed his paw on Webb's hand. The exact gesture Rhea had used countless times. Webb pulled Apollo close, buried his face in the dog's fur. Thank you for everything. Emma stood, walked to them. She placed her small hand on Webb's shoulder. Then she spoke. First words in 2 years, clear and certain. She's not gone. Rachel gasped, hands flying to her mouth. Emma continued, voice soft but steady. She's in him. She's protecting him. Like my daddy protects me. The crowd erupted, voices overlapping, cameras flashing. Garrett stepped back, spoke quietly into his radio. The tactical units retreated to their vehicles. Davis approached Morrison. The Genesis program is being shut down. Apollo's status is under review. But given the circumstances and media attention, forced recovery is no longer viable. What does that mean? Natalie asked. It means the federal government is not going to forcibly remove a hero dog from a traumatized child on national television. Davis looked tired. It means Apollo stays. With conditions. What conditions? Genetic samples for research, voluntary only, and Lieutenant Webb provides testimony about the program's practices for the investigation. Webb stood, still holding Apollo. I'll testify, all of it. Morrison turned to Natalie. You willing to partner with him officially? Full K-9 certification? Yes, sir. Then as of now, Apollo is Riverside PD property, under Officer Brooks's care. The 14 dogs broke formation simultaneously, returning to their handlers, as if released from invisible duty. Emma ran to her mother, wrapped her arms around her. Rachel sobbed, holding her daughter. The crowd began to disperse, conversations buzzing. Reporters approached for statements. But in the center of the courtyard, Natalie, Webb, Apollo, and Emma remained. The chalk drawing glowed under streetlights. Rhea's image surrounded by light, connected to Apollo. Connected to the people around him. She wanted him protected, Webb said quietly. That was her last wish. That's why he came here. To find people who would protect him the way she protected me. Natalie knelt beside Apollo. You're safe now. No more experiments, no more pain. Apollo licked her face, tail wagging for the first time. Emma touched the drawing one last time, then took her mother's hand. As they walked away, she looked back. Goodbye, Apollo. Thank you for finding me. Apollo watched until they disappeared around the corner. Then he sat beside Natalie, leaned against her leg, and finally, after months of conditioning and trauma and fear, he closed his eyes. Not on alert, not ready for orders, just resting, like a puppy should. 3 days after the courtyard incident, Dr. Chen arrived at the police station with a file marked classified. Morrison, Natalie, and Webb gathered in the conference room. Apollo lay beneath the table, calm but attentive. Dr. Chen spread documents across the surface. Medical records, genetic analyses, brain scans that looked more like abstract art than science. You deserve the complete truth, she said. I was part of Genesis. Not by choice initially, but I stayed because I thought I could protect the dogs from the worst of it. Webb's. Ed's expression hardened. You were there. I was the veterinary consultant. I tried to minimize harm, but I failed. Dr. Chen's voice carried weight. They didn't just train Apollo. They altered him before birth. She pulled out a detailed genetic map. Experimental gene therapy during Rhea's pregnancy, designed to accelerate cognitive development, enhance physical capabilities, strengthen loyalty and coding. You experimented on an unborn puppy, Natalie said. I documented every violation. That documentation is why the program's being shut down. Dr. Chen met her eyes. But there's something else, something the program didn't anticipate. She displayed brain scans side by side, one labeled Rhea, one labeled Apollo. Neural pathway patterns, the way information moves through the brain, creating thought, memory, instinct. She pointed to matching formations. These should be unique to each individual. But Apollo's patterns mirror Rhea's exactly. You mentioned this before, Morrison said. I've done more analysis since. It's not just similarity. Apollo's brain is structured like Rhea's was. Not learned behavior, inherited architecture. Dr. Chen's finger traced connections on the scans. When Ria died, she was conscious for 4 minutes after the C-section. The medics recorded unusual neural activity. Her brain was firing in patterns associated with maternal bonding and protection. She was trying to reach him, Webb said quietly. More than that, her dying neural patterns synchronized with Apollo's developing brainwaves. The program thought they were creating enhanced intelligence through gene therapy. But what if the real enhancement came from that 4-minute window? The room fell silent. Muscle memory passes through generations, Dr. Chen continued. Birds know migration routes they've never flown. Salmon return to spawning grounds they've never seen. Why? Genetic memory. Information encoded at cellular level. She looked at Apollo. What if consciousness can transfer the same way? What if a mother's final thoughts, her final mission, imprinted directly onto her offspring's developing mind? You're saying Apollo has Ria's memories, Morrison said slowly. I'm saying he has her purpose. Her instincts weren't taught. They were inherited. Dr. Chen pulled out another document. This is Ria's full service record. Every skill, every behavior pattern, every response protocol. Apollo demonstrates 96% of them without training. Webb leaned forward. He knows what she knew. On an instinctual level that bypasses conventional learning. The program tried to take credit, claiming their genetic modifications worked. But I believe Ria gave Apollo more in those 4 minutes than science ever could. Natalie reached down, placed her hand on Apollo's head. That's why the other dogs formed a circle. They recognized something in him. Animals communicate in ways we don't fully understand. Pheromones, electromagnetic fields, subtle body language. Apollo carries Ria's presence somehow. Dogs sense it. Webb pulled out the photograph he'd shown Natalie before. Ria standing beside him in Kabul, alert and proud. How did Emma know what this looked like? Her drawing was 96% accurate. I don't have a scientific answer, Dr. Chen admitted. But Emma experienced profound trauma, lost her father violently. Apollo experienced trauma, lost his mother violently. Trauma creates connections we can't measure. She felt what he felt. Rachel's voice came from the doorway. She stood holding Emma's hand, having been invited to this meeting. I've watched her for 2 years. She doesn't speak, but she knows things. Knows when I'm about to cry before I do. Knows when storms are coming before the sky changes. Emma stepped forward, approached Apollo. The dog stood, nuzzled her hand. Show them, Rachel said gently. Emma pulled a notebook from her backpack, opened it. Page after page of drawings, dogs and soldiers. Different scenes, different settings, but always the same theme. Protection, sacrifice, love. She started drawing these 2 years ago, Rachel said. Before Apollo existed in her world. Before she could have known about Ria. Dr. Chen examined the drawings. Her expression shifted. These are archetypal, universal symbols of guardianship. Emma wasn't drawing Apollo's story specifically. She was drawing the concept he represents. Which is, Morrison asked, legacy through sacrifice. The idea that love transcends death, passes to the next generation, continues the mission. Dr. Chen looked at Webb. Ria died protecting you, Apollo. Apollo was born into that purpose. Emma lost her father protecting others. She recognized the pattern because she lives it. Webb stood, moved to the window. His reflection showed a man carrying visible weight. I've been running for 3 months, trying to protect Apollo from being turned into a weapon. But maybe that's not what they were making. What do you mean? Natalie asked. Ria wasn't a weapon. She was a guardian. The difference matters. He turned back. The program tried to create a tool, something they could control and deploy. But Ria's legacy isn't about control. It's about choice. Apollo walked to Webb, sat at his feet. Perfect handler position. When Ria pushed me out of that blast radius, she chose to sacrifice herself. No one commanded her. No training protocol required it. She decided I was worth saving. Webb's voice caught. Apollo came to that school on his own, found Emma on his own, protected her on his own. Not because he was programmed to, because he chose to. Davis entered the room, federal badge visible. Lieutenant Webb, we need your official statement about Genesis procedures. You'll get it. All of it. And we need to discuss Apollo's status. Davis pulled out paperwork. The program wants genetic samples, blood work, tissue cultures. They claim it's necessary to understand the modifications and prevent future harm. No, Webb said immediately. Lieutenant, this is standard. He's been through enough. You want data? Use what Dr. Chen already collected. Davis hesitated. There's pressure from above. Apollo represents significant investment. Apollo represents a living being who's been tortured in the name of science. Natalie stood. If you touch him again, you'll deal with me. Morrison crossed his arms. And me, and this entire department. Try to explain to the media why you need more samples from a dog that's become a symbol of military sacrifice. Davis exhaled slowly. I'll relay your position. You do that, Morrison said. After Davis left, silence settled over the room. Emma continued to draw, adding details to a new sketch. This one showed Apollo standing beside Natalie, both in uniform. She sees the future, Rachel said softly. Or maybe she sees what should be. Wed knelt beside Emma. You helped him. You and your pictures. You made people understand. Emma looked up, smiled slightly, spoke in her quiet voice. He helped me too. Made the sad lighter. Rachel wiped tears away. Dr. Chen began packing her files. I'll provide everything I have to the investigation. Every protocol violation. Every ethical breach. The other dogs from Genesis deserve justice too. What happened to them? Natalie asked. 3 were euthanized when the conditioning failed. 2 are in rehabilitation. 1 disappeared. Dr. Chen paused. The program claimed success with Apollo because he didn't break. But they were wrong. He didn't succeed because of their methods. He succeeded despite them. She looked at the dog. Ria's love was stronger than their conditioning. That's what saved him. Morrison stood. Officer Brooks, you're officially assigned as Apollo's handler. Full K9 certification training starts Monday. Lieutenant Webb, you're hired as consultant. You'll help transition Apollo into proper police work. Thank you, Captain, Natalie said. Don't thank me. You're taking on a dog with more baggage than any handler should face. But if anyone can help him, it's you too. Emma tugged on Natalie's sleeve, handed her the drawing she'd just completed. Apollo and Natalie, together, surrounded by light. Keep him safe, Emma whispered. I will, I promise. That evening, Natalie sat on her back porch with Apollo beside her. Stars emerged as daylight faded, puncturing the deepening blue. Rex's collar still hung in her house. But it no longer felt like a shrine to loss. It felt like a reminder of what mattered. Connection, loyalty, purpose. Apollo rested his head on her knee. The gesture was pure affection now, not calculation or training. Just a dog seeking comfort from his person. Your mom was a hero, Natalie said quietly. But you don't have to be her. You don't have to be what they tried to make you. You can just be Apollo. His tail thumped against the porch. Webb's truck pulled up. He emerged carrying a box, walked to the porch. Found these in storage, Ria's things. Inside were photos, training records, a worn rope toy. Evidence of a life spent in service. Apollo sniffed the toy, recognized the scent. He picked it up gently, carried it to the yard, and lay down with it between his paws, not playing. Gee, just holding, remembering. He knows, Webb said. Yeah, he knows. They sat in comfortable silence, watching Apollo with his mother's toy. The weight of the past 3 days settled into something manageable. Not resolved completely, but no longer crushing. What happens now? Webb asked. Training, work, normal life as much as possible. Natalie glanced at him. You staying in Riverside? Morrison offered me the K9 coordinator position. Figure I owe it to Ria to help other dogs avoid what Apollo went through. She'd like that. Yeah, she would. 3 months passed like pages turning in a book that finally made sense. Natalie and Apollo completed full K9 certification in record time. Not because of genetic enhancements or experimental conditioning, but because they understood each other. Trust built through shared experience, not forced protocol. They patrolled together daily. Apollo's enhanced abilities were disclosed to the department with careful truth. Officially, he was an exceptionally trained rescue from a military program. The darker details remained classified, known only to those who needed to know. Emma visited twice weekly. Rachel brought her to the station after school. The little girl would sit in the training yard, drawing while Apollo practiced commands. She spoke more now, full sentences instead of whispers. Her therapist called it miraculous progress. It's not a miracle, Rachel told Natalie one afternoon. It's connection. She found someone who understood her pain. The chalk drawing at Lincoln Elementary remained untouched. The school board voted to preserve it, coating it with protective sealant. A small plaque was installed nearby, in memory of Canine Rhea and all who serve. The security footage from that night went viral. 847 million views across platforms. 14 police dogs forming a perfect circle around a little girl's art. The image became a symbol, shared and reshared until it transcended its origin. Major networks covered the story. Apollo became the face of canine sacrifice, though Natalie carefully controlled his exposure. He wasn't a spectacle. He was a working dog who deserved dignity. In late September, an invitation arrived. Embossed letterhead, official seal, National Police Canine Memorial, Washington, D.C. Apollo was invited to represent next-generation service dogs. Rhea would be posthumously awarded the Medal of Valor, the highest honor for working animals. Webb would accept on her behalf. Natalie held the invitation, reading it twice. "We have to go. It's across the country," Webb said. They were sitting in Morrison's office, discussing logistics. "It's honoring Rhea. We have to go." Morrison nodded. "Department will cover travel. Take a week. You've earned it." Rachel asked to bring Emma. "She needs to see this. Needs to understand that sacrifice means something." They traveled together. 5 people, 1 dog, boarding a plane from a small regional airport. Emma was terrified of crowds initially, gripping her mother's hand until her knuckles whitened. Apollo placed his head in her lap. She buried her fingers in his fur, and the tension eased. She fell asleep that way, holding his ear, while the plane carried them east. Washington, D.C. in September was beautiful. Golden light, cooling temperatures, leaves just beginning to turn. The memorial stood in a quiet park away from the political chaos of the Capitol. A wall of black granite stretched 50 feet long. Names engraved in precise rows. 5,847 canines killed in service since records began. Rhea's name had been added at the end. Fresh carving. Still bright against weathered stone. The ceremony began at 10 in the morning. 2,000 people attended. Handlers, families, military personnel, civilians who'd been saved by canine units. They filled the lawn, a sea of dress uniforms and quiet respect. Apollo was supposed to sit with Natalie in the audience. Standard protocol. But when Webb's name was called to accept Rhea's medal, Apollo stood. Natalie's hand moved to stop him, then froze. Something in his posture, his certainty, made her let go. Apollo walked to the stage without command, climbed the steps with perfect precision, sat beside Webb at attention, exact military posture, exactly as Rhea had done in countless service photos. The audience gasped. Cameras captured the moment from every angle. Webb looked down, saw Apollo beside him. His composure wavered, then steadied. The presenter, a 3-star general, paused, then continued as if this were planned. Military working dog Rhea. Belgian. Elgin Malinois served 3 tours with distinction, 47 confirmed explosive detections, 3 combat deployments. On August 15th, she sacrificed her life to save her handler, Lieutenant Marcus Webb, pushing him from the path of an improvised explosive device. The general held up the medal, bronze, with a ribbon of red, white, and blue. "For extraordinary valor and selfless service, we honor Canine Rhea posthumously with the Medal of Valor." He handed it to Webb. Webb held the medal, looking at it through tears he didn't try to hide. "Rhea saved my life. That's in the citation. What it doesn't say is she saved me long before that day." His voice carried across the silent crowd. "PTSD, survivor's guilt, the weight of command. She knew when I was breaking, always." He paused, would rest her paw on my hand, like this. Apollo placed his paw on Webb's hand. The gesture was identical, perfectly timed. People in the audience wept openly. Her son carries her heart, her mission. Webb looked at Apollo. To protect, to comfort, to never abandon. That's not training, that's love. Applause erupted. Not polite ceremony applause, but real emotion breaking through military formality. After the ceremony, families approached the memorial wall, touching names, leaving flowers, speaking quietly to those who couldn't answer. Emma walked to Rhea's name with Apollo beside her. She placed her small hand on the carved letters. traced them slowly. Then she signed in the ASL she'd been learning. "Thank you for sharing your son." Apollo licked her hand gently. Emma spoke aloud, voice clear in the afternoon air. "You were a good dog." Rachel pulled Emma close, shoulders shaking with silent sobs. News cameras recorded the moment. By evening, it would be headlines. "Silent Girl Finds Voice Through Hero Dog's Legacy." That night, Webb invited them to his hotel room. He'd brought a box from storage. Things he couldn't look at for 8 months. Inside were Ria's service photos, awards, certifications, training records, a life documented in paper and pixels. And her favorite toy, the rope, frayed from years of use. Apollo sniffed it, recognition immediate. He took it gently, lay down with it between his paws. Emma sat beside him, opened her notebook. She drew quietly while the adults talked. Her subject this time was different. Not soldiers and explosions. Not trauma rendered in chalk. She drew people and dogs together, safe, connected, at peace. She titled it in careful letters, "Home Now." Webb looked at the drawing, smiled through lingering tears. "Yeah, that's right, home." 2 weeks after returning to Riverside, Webb officially accepted the K-9 coordinator position. His first act was implementing new protocols, mandatory psychological screening for working dogs, enhanced retirement programs, zero tolerance for conditioning that prioritized results over welfare. "Ria deserves better than having her legacy be pain," he told Morrison. Agreed. Make it happen. The Genesis program was formally shut down. Congressional hearings revealed the full scope of violations. 3 officials resigned. 2 faced criminal charges. The remaining enhanced dogs were retired to specialized homes where handlers understood their needs. Dr. Chen testified for 6 hours, providing documentation that sealed the case. Afterward, she opened a private practice specializing in trauma recovery for working animals. Her first patient was a German Shepherd from Genesis, scared, broken, but not beyond hope. On a Saturday morning in October, Natalie took Apollo to the city park. Webb came too, bringing the new dog assigned to him through the department, a young German Shepherd named Ranger, rescued from Genesis, learning to be a dog again instead of a weapon. Emma and Rachel met them there. Emma brought sidewalk chalk, began drawing on the park's wide concrete plaza. This drawing was different. Bright colors, flowers, smiling people, dogs playing instead of fighting, hope instead of trauma. A little boy approached, maybe 5 years old. He hid behind his father's leg, curious but cautious. Apollo walked to him, sat, offered his paw. The boy giggled, shook the paw with both hands. The father knelt, prosthetic leg visible below his shorts. Military veteran, that much was clear. "Military dog?" he asked. "Retired," Webb said. "Like us." The father petted Apollo carefully. "Thank you for your service, buddy." Apollo's tail wagged, full, genuine, joyful motion. The first truly carefree wag Natalie had seen from him. She watched the scene unfold, Emma drawing happiness, Apollo playing. Aying with children. Webb talking with another veteran, Rachel photographing Emma's smile. Normal. Finally, wonderfully normal. That evening, as golden light painted the sky in shades of amber and rose, Natalie sat on her porch with Apollo beside her. Inside the house, Rex's collar was displayed on the mantel. Beside it now sat a photo of Ria, printed and framed. 2 legacies, honored equally. Apollo rested his head on her knee, eyes half closed in contentment. 8 months ago. "I thought I'd lost everything," Natalie said quietly. "Thought I'd never trust another partner, never feel whole again." Apollo's ear twitched, listening. "But you didn't replace Rex. You reminded me why he mattered, why any of this matters." She scratched behind Apollo's ear, where the electrode scars had faded to almost nothing. Some legacies aren't meant to end. They're meant to transform. A breeze stirred the evening air. Somewhere nearby, children laughed. A normal sound in a normal neighborhood. Apollo barked once. Not an alert, not a warning, just expression. Joy translated into sound. Natalie smiled. "Yeah, I feel that too." The sky darkened by degrees. Stars emerged. The same stars that had watched over Riyadh in Kabul, over Rex in his final days, over Apollo being born into a world that didn't understand him yet. But understanding had come. through pain, through connection. Through a little girl's chalk drawings and 14 dogs forming an impossible circle. Legacy wasn't about perfection, wasn't about genetic enhancement or forced conditioning. It was about love strong enough to transcend death, transfer across generations, continue the mission. Rhea had protected Webb with her last breath. Apollo protected others with every choice he made. Rex had loved Natalie completely, teaching her that loss couldn't destroy what mattered most. And what mattered was this: sitting on a porch with a dog who'd survived hell and chosen to trust again. Watching stars emerge, feeling peace settle like a comfortable weight. Apollo shifted, pressed closer. His breathing was steady, deep, relaxed. Not a weapon, not an experiment, not enhanced or conditioned or controlled. Just a dog, a good dog, who'd found his way home. Inside, Natalie's phone buzzed. Message from Emma, sent with Rachel's help. A photo, Emma and Apollo from the park. Both smiling. Caption underneath in Emma's careful handwriting: "Thank you for keeping him safe." Natalie saved the photo, set it as her background. Then she turned off the phone, returned to the evening. To the moment. To Apollo's warmth against her leg and stars brightening overhead. They said Apollo was an experiment, a genetic enhancement, a neural project designed to create the perfect working dog. What science couldn't measure, what Rhea had given him in those final 4 minutes. What Emma had recognized in his pain. What Natalie and Webb had protected when the world wanted to reclaim him. Love didn't transfer through genes. It transferred through sacrifice, through choice, through recognition that some bonds transcended explanation, existing in spaces science couldn't quantify. And the 14 dogs that formed a circle that night understood what the Genesis program never could. Heroism wasn't manufactured in laboratories or encoded in DNA. It was born in moments of decision. When a mother pushed her handler from danger. When a son protected a grieving child. When handlers chose compassion over compliance. Those moments created legacy. Real, lasting, transformative. Apollo's story had traveled far beyond Riverside. Touched millions who saw the footage, read the headlines, shared the images. But the story's real impact was smaller, more personal. A girl who found her voice again. A veteran who found purpose after loss. An officer who learned to trust again. A dog who learned he could be more than what others tried to make him. That was legacy. Not grand gestures or viral moments, but quiet transformations that rippled outward, changing everything they touched. If this story moved you, let it remind you. Every dog you've loved, every connection that changed you, every moment of loyalty that transcended words. Those are legacies worth honoring. Share them, remember them, let them transform you the way Apollo transformed everyone who knew his truth. Because in the end, no legacy is forgotten if someone remembers to tell the story. And Apollo's story, Rhea's sacrifice, Emma's healing, would be told for as long as people believed that love was stronger than pain, that hope outlasted trauma, that some bonds, once formed, could never truly break.